Greetings, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. This is our sandbox webinar on strategy.
I've never worked in a sandbox before.
This is my good friend, Andy Johnston. Say hello, Andy.
Hey.
Andy and I have known each other for many, many years. And Andy runs an organization called the Idea Group, based out of Atlanta. I invited Andy.
Only 30 years.
30 years.
Yes.
I've invited Andy because something that we shared in our early days working at Jack Morton was a desire to bring some organization and some purpose to those wacky creative sessions that we used to participate in. So we both found strategy as a way to help bring some organization and again some purpose to creative. And then over the years we've matured our own various ways of doing business. So what we want to do is just share with you some of our thoughts, some of our insights in strategy and why it's important. A couple of housekeeping notes first. If you have questions, please use the Q&A button and you can go ahead and send your questions on. We have Jasmine, who's our digital marketing manager here, and she will field them and send them to us at the end. Secondly, tomorrow you will all receive an email from us with links to the webinar recording. And then next week you will receive an email packet from Andy and I with a bunch of notes and some attachments and some follow-up things so that you'll have some nice usable information and tools to take away. So the session is about strategic planning or strategic event planning. But before we can really get into planning as a process, let's just talk about strategy, because you can't be strategic unless you have a strategy. Now, sadly, strategy and all things strategic have
strategic planning sounds so scary. It sounds very, very grown up because you've got to think things through. But really the key thing about strategy and strategic planning is you're simply making choices. You're thinking through the event, you're thinking through all the people in the event, and you're figuring out three important things. What is the meeting about? Why are you having it? Why would anyone want to attend? And what do you want to have happen as a result of that event? Those are the things you have to decide before you get into tactics or anything else.
And because strategy is overused, misused, and misunderstood, why don't we talk a little bit about what it is and what it is not. So we're going to play a little game.
Yes, the strategy game.
And it is called, Is It a Strategy?
All right.
So I'm going to call off a number of things here that are commonly found. In fact, we found these in some strategy statements.
You got it.
While Googling. Be number one in the market.
Is that a strategy? If it is, everybody hold up your hands. All right. In reality, that is not strategy. That's an objective.
Increase sales 10%.
Is that strategy? It's an objective.
Add more CE credit sessions to our program.
Objective.
Reduce costs by 10%.
Objective.
Design a new floor plan.
Objective.
So what we've just learned is that strategy is not a list of goals or objectives. It's not a list of tactics or actions. In fact, strategy isn't complex at all. Strategy is not a binder with a big planning document in it. It's not a vision or a mission statement. It really is none of those things. So what is strategy?
Well, there's some misconceptions, there's some myths about strategic planning and strategy. First, that it's really complicated, takes a long time, and it takes 21 consultants, none of which is true. It really doesn't take that long. It takes a bunch of people, small group of people who really have some insight as what's going on. Is it costly? No, it is not costly. Do you absolutely have to do it? You really should. I tell you what, we made a little list here. Strategic planning answers these questions. how to attract new people and retain current attendees, how to increase value and relevance, how to build the buzz and keep it buzzing, how to increase the stature of your conference, how to be more effective and be effective in using your time and money, how you can encourage your exhibitors and your sponsors to increase their participation, and overall, how to make your event, your conference, your convention more valuable to everybody.
Boiling strategy down is all about deciding for yourself, as Andy mentioned, making decisions, making choices about what success looks like. One of the things we always talk about with our clients is that you can't be successful unless you know what success looks like. So ultimately, that's what your strategy and what your strategic process is going to yield. Let's talk a little bit about what strategy is. Well, first, strategy is best if it's simple and it's clear. It's a clarifier. It's also about articulating how you're going to accomplish your objectives. It serves as an alignment and a focus tool. It puts what success looks like squarely in the hairs of your target. It is about making choices. It should also alter behaviors. People who know exactly what a strategy is has a very clear eye on what they need to do to accomplish it. And one of my favorite things that a strategy is, I learned at Coca-Cola, and it is that strategy is both a shield and a sword. And it's a shield in that it helps to fend off ideas that aren't relevant to accomplishing your objectives. And it's a sword that you use to fight for those tactics.
Protect the things you want.
Protect the things you want. Very good.
One of the biggest reasons that I run across about why people want to go ahead and jump in and to organize that meeting and get things going is that we've already done this before. We want to do the same thing we did last year. And what I try to explain to clients is there is nothing more dangerous than a successful event.
Let's talk a little bit about what an event looks like from a constituent or a stakeholder point of view, because that is what you really need to be looking at. This is our ecosystem. Our ecosystem has 3 ponds in it. The first pond is you as the organizer or association or company. Then you have your participants or attendees. And then you have your exhibitors and sponsors. Unless all 3 stakeholder groups are successful, you're not even getting close to being completely successful.
May I borrow this?
Of course.
And in this part, where all 3 of them overlap, that's your event. This, and this, where these overlap, this is where your content and your logistics and your strategy comes from. It has to be balanced, but it all comes together in this one place, which is where your event is.
The other way I like to look at these intersections are these are opportunities. And those are opportunities for you to create success and engagement between the various parts of your ecosystem. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what business are you really in? And what I tell most organizers that I work with is that you're not really in the event business, you're in the value creation business, because it's your job through your strategy and your planning to make sure that you're creating value at each of these intersections for each of those groups.
And that's a very, very important consideration, and it's one that we don't really spend a lot of time in. Snapper lawnmowers. Snapper lawnmowers are not in the lawnmower making business. They're in the short grass business. Gillette is not in the razor business. They're in the smooth face business. And Black & Decker make those wonderful hand drills. They're not in the drill business. They're in the 1/4-inch hole business. So what we have to do in designing our events And our strategy, just as Richard said, is we have to figure out exactly what our business is for that particular event.
We were looking at different company strategies, and it is true. Companies that have the simplest, clearest strategies are the ones that are the most successful. And we looked at a bunch of them. One of my favorite is IKEA. And IKEA looks at their strategy in two ways. First, they look at what they are not, which is important because one of the worst things that you could do in putting your strategy together is to be all things to all people. You can't. You will fail. So when they identified what businesses they weren't in or what they didn't do, they were not in the setup business, the delivery business. They make you go through basically a labyrinth of a store with very little customer service around. That sounds like a formula for failure.
Not too many employees on the floor. Yeah.
But they have a very clear strategy, and their clear strategy is to make affordable, simple style furniture for the many.
Gotcha.
They don't want to be for everyone. They have a very distinct market, and as we all know, they are extremely successful at what they do.
Gotcha. So you want to talk about some strategic planning?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. The key to doing strategic planning for an event is you have to get the right group of people together. These have to be people who sort of know what's going on, people who will be with you and involved in the entire process, and people who are comfortable making decisions. Because as you think things through, you have to think through this to incorporate all these different constituencies that Richard talked about back here. You can't just think about it from the association's point of view, or just from the audience and assume the audience is, everybody in the audience thinks the same and wants the same things. The same thing with your exhibitors and your sponsors. So you have to get this group together, and it would be really handy if you had a mandate from the leadership of the organization, because we've all been there. You go through and you design an event and you come up with what you're going to do, and you go in and you show it to your leadership or your CEO, your top executive, and they look at it and they go, no, this wasn't what I was thinking. I don't like this. And we throw it all away and we start all over again. So part of that strategic planning process is to get them involved. So this is actually, it's 3 steps, as we said when we announced this. So the first step of this, all right. And my handwriting stinks. It's all right. Here we go. Very simple. Number 1, the first thing you want to find out is what everybody wants. This is like, what are your attendees' expectations for your event? What is your own organization's expectations for this event? What are your exhibitors and your suppliers' expectation for this event? Basically, what does everybody want from this?
And if I can just interject, it's important that you actually do the hard work of finding the answers to those questions. It's easy to make assumptions. We feel like we know our customers, we know our exhibitors, we know our attendees, but the reality is that things evolve, things change. It's really critical that you get a fresh set of eyes and ears on what's going on with all of your stakeholders.
So we've covered what everyone wants. All right, then we're going into the communication aspect of this. What does the organization want and need to communicate? What do the attendees want and need to know? And what do the exhibitors and the suppliers want and need to know? And again, the only way to find that out is to ask, is to go in and understand that every meeting is different and unique. And in this particular one, what does everyone want and need to know? Then we're going to go in to do part. This is still the first step of this, is what do you want your attendees to do? What do the exhibitors want the association or your group to do? And what do the attendees want your group to do? This is not just all one way, is they have expectations of you and what they want you to do. This is a critical part because you can't do the next part without knowing this, okay? The next part,
Which is why we call it an ecosystem,
Yeah.
because you are all interdependent on each other. So it's critical that you help make sure that everyone's needs are considered.
all right, this is the part in the process where most people stop because, as Richard was saying, we have to make choices, and this is where the choices come in. This is where you decide which things are important. This is where you want to go. So you have to sit there and determine what are the major objectives. Of the event. What are the key objectives? What of all those expectations that you discovered in the first step, which one of those are you going to try to handle?
And remember, you can't do everything.
No. Like IKEA, you can't please everyone. You got to focus. All right. For these objectives and these expectations, what is the key information that you have to communicate? All right. This leads you to developing your content a little bit later. And then finally, which is the key one, is what do you want to have happen? What do you want all those attendees to do? What actions do you want them to take?
So that they act on your objectives.
Exactly.
As well as their own personal success objectives.
We were talking a minute ago about you go through the whole process and then you present it to the leadership or the executive team and they go, well, no, this wasn't what I had in mind. This is where you get them involved. Go ahead and get them in. It doesn't take all day. It's a 15, 20-minute meeting. But you want to find out what the meeting is about, what the event is about. I haven't told you this. Several years ago, I had an association call me in. They were concerned that their attendance had been flat and was started to decline. So we all came in, we sat in the conference room, and I said, well, what is your conference about? And the organizer thought for a moment, and she said, it's about 3 days. It's not a joke. They had done the same event every year for 10 years. They had never thought through of this, any of this. They were just repeating what they did before. So getting the top management involved, getting their ideas, getting their mandate, getting their agreement, and getting them to delegate all that back down to you is how this second step works. And this is the step which really dictates where you're going from here on. Then, after you've got this done, I went to college for this, guys. You get into number 3. Number 3 is, what do we have to do to make all this great stuff happen? This is where you come down to the big equalizer. Think about your last events. How many of them had real live measurable results? Not too many people have them. You have to determine what you want to have happen. What are the results you want? What are the results you're applying to them? Then you get down into what topics and key messages. There's another S in there, isn't it? Not designing the content, but this is where you give people direction on that content? What are the best ways to communicate this information to get these results? So you figure that out. This is you figure out, you know, not everything has to be on the main stage. Not everything has to be in that general session. If you have a general session that starts at 8 a.m. in the morning and goes until 5 o'clock in the afternoon with 2 coffee breaks and 1 1-hour lunch, those attendees should be declared legally dead and have their estates probated. Nice. Sorry. You have to think about what is the best way to communicate, and it's not always in the main tent. Then who is the most acceptable and the most appropriate person or people to communicate this? We don't decide this. The audience decides this. Who are they going to believe? Who has the most credibility here? Then finally, how do you wrap up the total experience to where you're able to create the biggest thing out of the whole event, which is value? Remember, we don't define value. The attendees and the exhibitors and the sponsors define value. So we have to make sure we give them something that they can come home and justify being away from the office, being away from their business or wherever, and to make them want to come back and be with us again next year.
I want to share with you one very easy 2-word tool that we use often here to make sure that we're connecting needs and requirements with the actions of what we're doing. And that's so that. Whenever we're building creative or we're coming up with ideas or tactics, we always put the words "so that" at the end of it to make sure that they're linking back up with one of the specific needs. So that also helps identify behaviors. And when we talk about results, behaviors is probably about the single most measurable result next to bottom line dollars and cents. And ultimately, that's really what you're trying to help affect. You try to affect behaviors in 2 ways in your planning. Number 1 is you want your attendees and your exhibitors to act on your requirements, which are acquisition, retention, certain dollar volumes. So they have to do things so that those results can come in. The other behavior that you're trying to satisfy are the needs of your participants, because that's why they're there. They want to be able to go back to their jobs, doing things better, differently, so that they're successful. So everything that you do, pardon me, at the event is to help them be more successful. It's to help, pardon me. Go ahead.
Here, have some more. Oh, that's yours.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all right, I spit in that one. Backing up a little bit, so that is a simple tool for transforming an objective into part of your strategy, or even better, into a result. Can we give them an example?
Such as?
On so that? We want to
educate.
Yeah, we want to educate our attendees more so they can receive more CE credits. That's an objective. So that they can do their jobs better, they can be more qualified, they can help the accreditation process, so that they can help their companies accomplish their objectives.
Yeah, ultimately, as you do that, you want to get down to behaviors, to successful and positive behaviors. That's when you know you're doing the right things.
Worked on an event several years ago. The objective was to increase, this is in the hotel industry, to increase the occupancy of their hotels 15% that year. Well, that was the company's objective. For the event, the theme was increase your business by 15% in the next 90 days. Had lots of attendance based on that one. That's just simply going through that process to focus down on something that is deliverable.
One thing I would urge you all to do is, Andy and I have seen literally thousands of RFPs over the years
Mm-hmm.
from both corporations as well as associations. And most RFPs have a set of objectives in them. And what I would ask you all to do is to go through your objectives that you're communicating out to your partners. Your partners are important because they can help you, but they can help you better if they truly understand what your objectives are, or if you have finely tuned objectives. So go through your objectives, and to test whether or not they're a tactic or a goal, put the word "so that" at the end of them. Whatever you get to at the end of that, that's a real live objective. And then retune your objectives so that your partners can then better help you.
You anticipated a question about how long this process takes, because we said at the beginning that it's not something that takes days and weeks and you end up with a three-ring binder and a giant bill. In reality, you want to break it up into little pieces. Maybe you do step one in a half day on number one. That's one, Andy. Sorry. Then you take a week and you get some information together. You talk to your constituents. You make sure you have all your information correctly. You get your top management involved. You get their input. So then you have another half day later on where you do number two and number three. You end up with a clear understanding of what the event is about, why people should attend, the value you're providing them. You also understand what you have to do to design and deliver that content to them. And you're able to get involved with your exhibitors and sponsors to let them know what you're planning, so you can give them valid reasons to maybe increase their participation and provide you more resources in doing the event. So instead of days and weeks, you're looking at maybe a grand total of a day to do this.
There's a massive organizational benefit to having a very clear, concise statement of strategy to start from. Is it really does get everyone in your organization on the same page. Whether you're 3 people, 20 people, or 100 people, it's easy to kind of get siloed in our efforts. We each have our own job, but if we're all working towards the exact same strategy, we're going to be more efficient, we're going to be more targeted, ultimately we'll be more successful. As we said earlier on, it's really a focusing and an alignment tool. Getting everyone going in the same direction is critical.
Cool. Where are we on time?
We have 2 minutes.
Wow. Are we good or what?
Jasmine, do we have any questions?
Here's your opportunity if you have questions. If not, I'm sure you can send them to Richard. He and I will do our best to answer your questions. If you need to talk to us, give us a shout. We'll try to give you whatever help we can do along the way.
Sounds good. And my email address, sorry, we didn't have a title slide up for it. It's randerson@shepardes.com. randerson@shepardes.com. Send me a note. And as I said, you'll get an email tomorrow from us with links to the webinar video. And next week you get a pile of stuff of information from both Andy and I.
Gotcha.
So we thank you very much for your time. We know your time is valuable, and I know there was an awful lot to get through in a short period of time, but we hope that you've got a good understanding of why strategy is important and that it can be very simple. By the way, one of the things you're going to get from us is you're going to get a template. And we kind of toyed with the idea of whether we wanted to give you a specific
one
template.
That was filled in. And
one
we
that was
decided
filled
not
in.
to.
And we thought we're not going to do that. We're going to, because every event, every organization is in fact unique. And your own strategy needs to be unique to your organization and your various constituents.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
The purpose of this is to help you clarify this, put it down in a simple format, so everyone in the organization understands the same thing in the same way. Now, this isn't a mission statement. You're not going to put it on a plaque and hang it in the lobby. but everyone involved in that event will know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, the desired results, and why people should attend. It's all on this statement right here.
Thank you all very much.
It's been fun. Thank you.